So even though he was only on screen for about 90 seconds, god dang it did Miles G. Morales make an impression. And even though this whole second wave of Across the Spider-Verse figures felt like an afterthought, god dang it is this one great. Okay, maybe great is an exaggeration, but he's definitely good. Listen, he gets the job done, alright? What's going on, folks? KC here. Welcome back to the channel. Now, if this is your first video, again, welcome. And if you've been here before, you know the drill, so what up, oos? Hey look, we're still on the road to 2K subs, so don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and tell your evil self to do so too. Or don't, I can't really control either of you. Can I be honest with y'all for a second? When I first watched Across the Spider-Verse, I had no idea that there was going to be a part 2. So when I saw Universe blah 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 Miles as the Prowler, I was on the edge of my seat, like, what's about to happen next? Come to find out, I wasn't the only one who didn't know what was about to happen next. All we know now is that there's only been 2 6-inch versions of this dope-ass character design, and the other one has gorilla arms. Thankfully though, this Hasbro doesn't suffer that same issue. The sculpting is good, the accessories are all here, I guess, and the articulation ain't half bad. But is it worth your hard-earned currencies? Let's find out. This dude has a ton of detail from head to toe, and while most of it is good, there's a few weak spots too. Starting from top to bottom, his head sculpts are phenomenal. The paintwork in his hair does a great job imitating the fade, and the line work does a good job giving the illusion of partings in his braids. Now, the front part on mine is a little bit off center, and to be honest with y'all, it doesn't look the best, so I wish that could have been cleaned up, but it doesn't diminish the overall sculpt. His chest shares the same logo and straps from the movie, but the paint from the strap actually overlaps the paint from the logo, so it breaks up the design. And I think Hasbro could have easily fixed this by simply moving the top strap down a bit, and it would also made it more accurate to the movie. Now Miles' jacket is just a simple plastic purple, but the cropped design doesn't get in the way of the articulation at all, and the break of black on the inside of his arms are a nice touch too. His utility belt is the same shade of purple as his jacket, but it's a different tone from the pants, so it's just enough to separate the two. Speaking of which, they tucked a lot of details in the pants as well. The straps hang from the back without getting in the way, the light touches of green and orange in the pouches, thighs, straps, and ankles help bring those cargo pants to life, and he's got knee pads like an adult film star from the early 2000s. And of course there's no logos, but these great value Jordans are nice too. Now, I saved the gauntlets for last because those are the most important pieces to this character. And a great paint job on the gauntlets would have gave this figure a much more premium look. A nice metallic gunmetal with some black accents throughout the fingers would have been so far. Instead, they decided to go a little more basic, and the dull, muddy gray paint that they did use comes off so flat, and it makes the entire figure look a little cheap. Now, I feel bad doing this because, again, Hasbro did pack a lot of details into this figure, but along with the mask, those gauntlets are the centerpiece of this Prowler, and the gauntlets just don't cut it. So for details, I'm giving Miles a 3.5 out of 5. Hasbro lucked out in the accessories department with this one. With a character with such little screen time, it wasn't a lot of opportunity to establish everything he would have needed for a loadout. That being said, let's take a look at these accessories. Now Hasbro did that thing they like to do where they give you one matching pair of hands and one mismatched pair of hands. So Miles G comes with 2 open clawed hands, 1 fist, and 1 grasping hand so he can hold on to his other accessory, which is his backpack. What's in the backpack, you say? Find out in 2026. Maybe. The only complaint I have is that they didn't include a fisted left hand. In the one scene he was in, he had Miles strapped up to a punching bag, which makes me believe that he can throw hands. But you can't really throw a 1-2 punch without the 2. Now the Prowler's 2 head sculpts are great. The design of his mask is super unique. The respirator is a great callback to how Miles and Uncle Aaron was spray painting around the town, which I'm pretty sure is illegal, and while not contagious, the pink eyes give a nice contrast to break up that dull gray paint job I was talking about earlier. And his unmasked head captures that nonchalant tone he gave for all of 5 seconds. But the sculpt itself is fantastic, and the soft plastic of his braids on both sculpts are a really nice touch. Now, like I said before, his introduction was brief, so I didn't expect to get a bunch of accessories with this guy. One thing I would have loved to see this Prowler come with though was an Uncle Aaron head sculpt to put onto the other Spider-Verse Prowler that nobody seems to have. But I'm not going to penalize them too much for not including that. So accessories get a 4 out of 5. Now let's talk about the articulation. The articulation is surprisingly impressive on Miles G, and a lot of it is cleverly hidden too. Now I'm not the articulation guy. On POAs mean absolutely nothing that Miles can't. Well, I don't really know what Miles does. I mean, again, he had a punching bag in his dojo, so he gotta know how to throw hands, right? Starting off at the head, Miles can do a full 360. He can tilt a crazy amount. He can look down that much. He can look up really well too. Now, one thing Legends did with this guy to increase the articulation is they raised the ball joint in his neck, so that joint itself moves really freely. Now, the character design is probably the reason for the pivot, but if they can keep doing this, please do it. Moving down to the arms, and damn a T-pose, here's a full-blown Y for you. No bicep swivel, but there is rotation at the elbow and a single joint that works surprisingly well. Swivel and tilt at the wrist. No butterfly joints or torso swivel on this guy, which stinks, but the ab crunch can go super far forward, and there's a disc swivel at the waist, which any other time looks really ugly, but you can cover that up with this belt. The legs can split that wide, and when I say the legs can go up, they go up. They can go back a good amount too. There's thigh swivel right underneath the pouches. He's got double jointed knees, and no boot swivel, but there is inside tilt and hinge both forward and backward at the foot. Now again, the articulation on this guy is surprisingly good, but his skinny little chicken legs make it hard for him to balance at times. And that's actually no fault of Hasbro's. Again, that's just the character design. Now, had Hasbro added a torso swivel and butterfly joints, the articulation would have been perfect. And that's a big reason why this wave as a whole felt like an afterthought. Only 2 figures of this wave have a torso swivel, and none of the figures feature any butterfly joints. But damn those other figures. The articulation on this one gets a 4 out of 5. Now let's pose them up. So the funny thing about Miles G is that I don't really know how tall he's supposed to be, because the only person he stood next to in the movie was normal Miles, and he was dangling from a punching bag. Actually, I guess he'd just be the same height as regular Miles, but what if they were different ages? What if our Miles not only went to a different universe, but he also went back in time? You know what? Let's just do some size comparisons. Here's how Miles G stacks up against the SH Figuarts Miles and Gwen. And it's hard because, again, both Miles, I guess, should be the same height, but also SHF made the proportions of this Miles extremely exaggerated. I think it's like a little too exaggerated if you ask me. And for those reasons, they don't really stand eye to eye. Now here's Prowler Morales with the rest of Team F the Cannon with the Sentinel Peter Parker and Spider-Man Noir and the Marvel Legends Spider-Punk. And these guys feel like a better height comparison because they're taller than the regular Miles in the movie. Not that much taller, but they are a little bit taller. Next up, we have the other antagonists from the film with the CT Toy Spider-Man 2099 and the Marvel Legends Spot. Keep in mind, that CT Toys is a little shorter than the SHF version, and even with that height reduction, he still towers over this Miles. And I have no idea how tall the Spot is supposed to be. You know what? Nah, Miles should be taller. Everybody else can't be wrong. It's him. Here's Shorty Miles G next to the rest of Team Legends That He Died with the Marvel Legends Jessica Drew, Cyborg Spider-Woman, and Emo Scarlet Spider. This is how Miles G stacks up next to a couple other Prowlers with his Marvel Legends animated series and Into the Spider-Verse counterparts. And these 3 have completely different designs, but they all look really good. Now here's how the evil version of Miles stacks up against the animated series good and evil version of Peter Parker. For some reason, these guys are on 2 different bucks, and I hate that, but I love the color differences. And hey, he's finally taller than somebody. Here's Miles next to Jax, Sonic, and Shadow, aka Evil Sonic, cause let's be real, that's all this design was ever meant to be. And lastly, here's Miles next to some of Spidey's biggest villains with the Marvel Legends Green Goblin, Venom, and Kingpin. So overall, this Prowler is a little small for my liking, but after you pose him up, you can finesse him into multiple displays. I just really wish he was taller. With that being said, scaling gets a 4 out of 5. The Marvel Legends Miles G. Morales is a fun figure. The amount of details they put into this dude is impressive. Yes, I wish he was a little taller, and even with the lack of articulation points, he still moves really well. He's a Marvel Legends, so he retails for $24.99, which is a really great price, but I've seen Marvel do so much better at the same price point. Case in point, Astonishing Wolverine. And for a character that I doubt will ever get another version of ever again, I would have liked a little more bang for my buck this time around. Pricing gets a 4 out of 5, which puts the overall score at a 3.9, which is a good score. Yes, the figure has its flaws, the biggest of which being those gauntlets, but again, it's still just a fun figure to play with. Anyway man, that'll do it for this review. In the comment section, let me know which company you'd like to see take a crack at a Miles G figure next. Call it glazing if you want, but I'd love to see what Sentinel would do with this design. And they got plenty of time to make it too. That'll do it for me, and until next time, protect your peace, stay young at heart, and remember, we're all kind of collecting something. Peace.